The sky of Velthora burned red that night. The once beautiful city of Alien was falling under fire from the Karn Dominion. Their ships rained down bright lances of plasma, tearing through towers of crystal and stone. The proud Valari people fought back with all they had, but the Dominion's armies were endless and their machines were merciless. Inside the royal citadel, alarms echoed through the marble halls. Queen Seraphine of Velthora stood at the high balcony, her glowing eyes wide with fear. She was not afraid for herself, she was afraid for her daughter. "Where is Lyra?" she asked her guards. Her voice trembled. The guards exchanged worried looks. The young Princess Lyra, only 10 years old, had been moved to a safe shelter hours ago. But communication had gone silent when the enemy breached the northern wall. The queen's heart turned cold. She wanted to run into the streets and find her daughter herself, but her advisors stopped her. "Your Majesty," one said, "if you fall, Velthora will fall with you." So the queen stood and watched her city burn, praying to the stars that her daughter was still alive somewhere under the smoke. Far away, on the edge of the ruins, a human soldier named Sergeant Ethan Hale moved carefully through the shattered streets. His armor was scratched and smoking from the last fight, but he pressed on. The Terran Expeditionary Force had come to help the Valari defend their world, though most aliens did not trust humans yet. They were new to the galactic community, brave but untested. Ethan didn't care about fame or medals. He only cared about getting his squad home alive. "Sir, scanners are picking up weak life signals ahead," said Corporal Diaz through the comlink. "Could be survivors." Ethan nodded. "Let's move. We're not leaving anyone behind." They followed the signal to a collapsed structure. It looked like part of a school or residence. Rubble and twisted beams covered the ground. The life signal was faint but steady, deep under the ruins. "Someone's alive down there," Ethan said. "Start digging." The soldiers worked fast, using exo-tools to move debris. The ground trembled as distant explosions shook the city. A part of the wall cracked, revealing a small space beneath. Inside, curled in the shadows, was a tiny figure, glowing faintly blue. "Wait," Diaz whispered. "Is that a Valari child?" Ethan dropped his weapon and crawled in. The child's face was pale, her eyes half open. Her crystalline skin was cracked in several places. She was weak but breathing. Ethan lifted her gently into his arms. "You're safe now," he whispered. "I've got you." The girl blinked slowly. Her voice was a faint whisper. "Mama?" Ethan's throat tightened. "No, little one. My name's Ethan. I'm going to take you to your mama, okay?" She nodded weakly before losing consciousness. Outside, the Dominion drones began scanning the streets. Their red lights swept across the ruins. Ethan's squad heard the metallic footsteps growing closer. "Sir, we've got company," Diaz warned. Ethan looked at the girl in his arms. "No time. We're leaving now." They ran through the crumbling streets, staying low, moving from one shadow to the next. The drone's scanners flashed overhead, searching for heat signatures. One of the soldiers slipped and dropped a metal casing. The clang echoed down the alley. Instantly, the drones turned and fired. Bolts of red light cut through the smoke. The squad scattered. Ethan covered the child with his body, shielding her from debris. "Go, get to the extraction point," he shouted. "But sir, go! That's an order." The others ran, drawing the drone's attention away. Ethan sprinted in the opposite direction, clutching the child close. His armor's warning lights blinked red. A plasma bolt grazed his shoulder, burning through the metal. He winced but kept running. He reached a ruined overpass, ducked behind the rubble, and checked the child's pulse. "Still alive. Thank the stars," the comm crackled. "Hale, what's your status?" "You've gone off the map." "I've got a survivor," he replied, breathing hard. "Small Valari girl. She needs medical attention now. Can't risk it, Sergeant. The enemy's closing in. We have to retreat." Ethan looked at the girl, so fragile in his arms. "Negative," he said firmly. "I'm not leaving her. I'll find another way." He cut the comm and looked up at the sky. The smoky red glow reflected in his visor. Somewhere above the clouds, the Dominion fleet hung like shadows, but beyond them, far away, the stars still shone, and bright and pure. "Hold on, kid," he murmured. "We're going home." Hours passed as Ethan made his way south toward the Valari defensive line. The city was a maze of fallen towers and broken machines. His oxygen tank was nearly empty, and his suit's power cell blinked low. Once he stopped to rest near a burning transport. The child stirred. whispering something in her own language. Ethan didn't understand the words, but her voice sounded like a prayer. He smiled softly. Yeah, I'm praying too. At dawn, the fighting slowed. The Dominion forces pulled back to regroup, leaving a brief silence across the battlefield. Ethan used that moment to cross the last few kilometers, but the enemy spotted him again. A troop of Dominion walkers emerged from the smoke, tall machines with glowing eyes. Ethan ducked into cover and whispered, "Hang on tight, little one." He threw a smoke grenade, then ran straight through the haze. Blaster fire followed him, cutting through the mist. He jumped over fallen debris, each step a struggle. His armor alarms screamed as the energy shield failed completely. He stumbled at the border, collapsing on one knee. Ahead he saw movement. Valari soldiers standing guard. Their armor shimmered like crystal. Ethan raised his free hand weakly and shouted, "Help! I have the princess." The soldiers hesitated, their weapons aimed at him. To them, humans were still outsiders, strange and unpredictable. But when they saw the small blue glow in his arms, they froze. "By the stars?" one whispered. "It's her." "It's Princess Lyra." The soldiers rushed forward, gently taking the child from his arms. Ethan smiled faintly, his vision blurring. "Told you, we'd make it," he whispered before falling unconscious. Hours later, in the royal palace, Queen Seraphine sat alone in her throne room. The sound of battle had faded, but the pain in her heart had not. She stared at a small pendant, Lyra's pendant, the only thing they had found after the Citadel's fall. Then the doors burst open. Her captain of the guard entered, breathing heavily. "My queen," he said, "we found her." "The princess. She's alive," Seraphine's breath caught. "Alive? How? Where?" "She was rescued by a human soldier. He brought her through the war zone." The queen rose to her feet, her luminous eyes wide with disbelief. "A human?" "Yes, your majesty. He carried her himself through the fire. He's in critical condition, but the child is safe." Tears welled in her eyes, tears that sparkled like tiny stars. For a moment she could not speak. Then she whispered, "Bring them both to me." That night the palace was silent except for the soft hum of the healing chambers. Princess Lyra slept peacefully, surrounded by gentle light. Beside her bed, a human soldier lay unconscious, his armor cracked and burnt, his breathing shallow. Queen Seraphine entered quietly. She looked at him for a long moment. His face was young but marked by courage and pain. She placed a hand over his chest and whispered, "You crossed death's shadow for my child." "Why would you do this, human?" Ethan did not wake, but his hand twitched slightly, as if he heard her. The queen looked at her daughter and then at him again. "You saved what I love most. I will not forget this." Outside, the war still raged beyond the horizon. But in that quiet room under the silver light of Velthora's twin moons, one human act of kindness had changed everything. The war on Velthora had ended, but the wounds it left behind were deep. Cities lay in ruins, families were broken, and the people lived with both grief and gratitude. Yet amid the sorrow, one miracle gave them hope. The return of Princess Lyra, rescued from the heart of the battlefield by a human soldier. That soldier was Sergeant Ethan Hale. For days, Ethan lay unconscious in a healing chamber deep within the royal palace. His body had suffered burns, broken bones, and energy shock from the Dominion's weapons. Valari healers had never treated a human before, but they worked carefully, guided by Terran medical files sent from orbit. At last, one morning, Ethan's eyes fluttered open. The light was soft, glowing blue from the healing walls. His throat felt dry. He tried to move, but pain shot through his side. "You should not move yet," said a gentle voice. He turned his head slowly. A tall figure stood beside his bed, skin like clear crystal, eyes shining with faint silver light. Her presence filled the room with calm power. Ethan blinked. "Your Majesty?" Queen Seraphine smiled faintly. "Yes. I am told you risked your life for my daughter." He tried to sit up, but the queen raised her hand. "Rest. You have already done enough." Ethan looked around. "Is she safe? The little girl, Lyra?" The queen's expression softened. "She is safe, sleeping peacefully, because of you." Ethan sighed in relief and leaned back. "Good, then it was worth it." For a long moment, the Queen said nothing. She studied the strange being before her. Flesh instead of crystal, blood instead of light, so fragile and yet so strong. She had seen many warriors, but none had shown such courage for someone not of their kind. She spoke quietly. You crossed the death fields alone. You fought our enemies with nothing but will. Why did you do this? Ethan thought for a moment. His voice was low. Because she needed help. Because no one deserves to be left behind, not even in war. The Queen's eyes glimmered. No one has ever spoken to me like that, she said softly. You humans. You are strange. He smiled faintly. We get that a lot. Days turned into weeks. Ethan recovered slowly, and during that time he began to understand more about the Valari people. Their world, though scarred by war, was full of beauty. Crystal trees sparkled in the sunlight. Rivers of blue light flowed through the cities, and their songs carried through the wind at night. The Queen often visited the healing chambers. Sometimes she brought her daughter, who would sit beside Ethan and draw small pictures on his medical pad. One day, Lyra smiled up at him and said, Mama told me you are from far away, from a world of clouds and water. Ethan chuckled. That's right, it's called Earth. Lots of blue oceans and green forests. You'd like it. She tilted her head. Will you go back? He hesitated. Maybe one day. But for now, I think I'm needed here. The Queen watched this from the doorway, a quiet smile forming on her face. She saw how her daughter's laughter returned when she spoke to the human. For the first time since the war began, the Queen felt peace. But peace never lasted long. Months later, the Dominion returned for a final strike. Though their armies were weakened, their leaders wanted revenge for their defeat. Their fleets gathered near the moons of Velthora, preparing to attack. Inside the Royal Command Hall, alarms flashed red. Generals and advisors spoke quickly in their musical Valari language, trying to form a plan. Ethan, now strong enough to walk without support, entered the chamber wearing a simple military jacket. The Queen looked up as he approached. My Queen, he said, I've seen their tactics before. They'll target your shield generators first, then the capital. One general frowned. Human tactics are primitive. We have fought the Dominion for decades. Ethan looked at him calmly. And that's why they know how you fight. But they don't know how we do. The Queen raised a hand to silence the argument. Continue, Sergeant. Ethan pointed at the holographic map. If we make them think the shields are already down, they'll rush in too close. We can set traps in the canyon fields, explosive mines buried in the crystal dust. Once they enter, we collapse the cliffs on their fleet. The Valari generals murmured among themselves. It was risky, but clever. Something they had never tried before. Seraphine met his eyes. You would lead this plan? Ethan nodded. If you'll let me. The Queen looked at him for a long moment, then smiled faintly. Very well, human. You will have your chance. The next morning, battle returned to Velthora, the sky filled with the black shapes of Dominion ships, their engines roaring like thunder. On the ground, Valari soldiers moved swiftly under Ethan's command. The Queen watched from her tower, her heart both proud and afraid. Ethan stood on the front line, his armor repaired and his mind focused. His voice rang through the comms. Remember, hold your fire until they enter the canyon. Make them think we're retreating. The enemy advanced fast, chasing the retreating Valari skirmishers into the canyon. Then, when the first line of ships entered, Ethan gave the order. Now! A wave of light burst across the horizon. The crystal cliffs exploded inward, collapsing on the Dominion fleet. Shockwaves rippled through the valley. The air filled with flashes of energy as ship after ship was crushed or lost power. The Valari soldiers cheered, their first true victory. But in war, victory often comes with a cost. One of the remaining Dominion cruisers crashed near the canyon mouth, sending fire across the field. Ethan ran toward the wreckage to save trapped soldiers. The ground shook beneath his feet. Sergeant, Diaz shouted through the comm, get out of there. Ethan ignored him. He pulled a Valari soldier free from debris, pushing him to safety. The ship's reactor began to overload. He could feel the heat rising. Just before the explosion, he dove behind a boulder. The blast threw him backward and darkness filled his vision. When he woke, he was back in the healing chamber. Again. The same soft blue light. The same gentle hum. But this time, Queen Seraphine was already waiting beside his bed. Her daughter stood next to her holding his hand. "You did it," the Queen said softly. "The Dominion fleet is gone. Velthora is free." Ethan tried to smile. "Guess the plan worked." "It did," she said. "But not without you." She looked at him quietly for a long moment. Then, to everyone's shock, she knelt beside his bed, the ruler of a star world bowing to a human soldier. "Sergeant Ethan Hale," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "You gave me back my child. You gave my people hope. I owe you more than I can ever repay." Ethan shook his head. "You don't owe me anything, Your Majesty. I just did what anyone should do." The Queen smiled. "Not anyone would have done what you did. Humanity has shown us something rare, courage with compassion." The following week, a great ceremony was held in the capital of Velthora. Thousands gathered in the shining plaza to see the human who saved their princess and their world. The Queen placed a small crystal medal on Ethan's chest. It shimmered like starlight. "This is the highest honor of Velthora," she said before the crowd. "Let this be a symbol that no distance of stars can divide hearts that choose to stand together." Ethan bowed deeply. "Then humanity stands with you, for peace." The crowd erupted in cheers. For the first time in history, humans and Velari celebrated as one people. Years later, long after the war ended, stories of the human who returned the light spread across the stars. Children on Earth and Velthora learned of the soldier who carried a princess through fire and helped unite two worlds. In the royal palace, Queen Seraphine often looked out from her balcony at the peaceful city below. Beside her, Princess Lyra laughed and played among the gardens. On a small crystal stand inside the throne room, one simple Terran medal rested, the same one Ethan wore that day. Engraved on it were two words that shone faintly under the light: "For humanity."